All the power. Okay, did anyone else get on the call? I know Danny was there.
So we have 5 voters for the IMT, is that right?
Roy, are you there? Okay, we've got Danny,
I'm here.
Eric, Eric, are you there? Okay, we'll wait a few more minutes. Can you guys hear us okay?
Kind of in and out.
Jennifer, do you have Commissioner Nelson's cell phone? Maybe he forgot about the early time.
I know, but let me see if I can text him.
Okay, thanks.
It's just not.
Oh. That's fine.
So he says he's following the link on the calendar invite. Is that maybe what is messing it up?
Oh, you mean instead of calling in?
Yeah.
Perhaps. Sorry, can we confirm? So we have Scott, Danny, Mary is present.
It's Eric.
Hi, Eric.
Hey.
Do we have Roy?
Okay, we'll call today's Planning Commission meeting to order. Madam Secretary, if you could please provide the roll call.
Okay, for the official roll call, do we have Commissioner Donor? We'll mark Commissioner Donor as absent. Do we have Commissioner Murphy?
Here.
Commissioner
Here.
Murphy, present. Mary Opal, our chair, is present. Commissioner McCann, are you present?
Yes.
Present. Okay, and finally, Vice Chair Nelson, are you present?
Present.
Present. All right, thank you.
All right, we'll move into the closed session. So Deputy City Attorney, is there a need for a closed session this evening?
Yes, there is. We have a closed session tonight for potential litigation or exposure to litigation, and we have one item.
All right, we'll close the Planning Commission meeting.
We'll close and go to closed session, and then we'll reconvene the Planning Commission at 6 p.m.
Thank you.
This is Scott. Is the line on?
Hi, Scott. Yes, it is.
Yes. This is Roy Donor.
Hi, Roy. Who else is on the call?
On GoToMeeting or on YouTube?
You can view the meeting on the YouTube link, but this is the correct line for the conference call.
Commissioner Donor, as we said in the email, the YouTube channel would be the probably optimal way to view the presentation that we'll be giving. So if you have the ability to pull that up at the same time with the phone call, it would probably be in your benefit.
Got it. Thanks.
Do we have Eric or Danny on the line?
I'm here. It's Eric Nelson.
Hi, Commissioner Nelson. Commissioner Murphy? All right, we'll give her a minute to call over. Jennifer, are you on the line?
I am on the line.
Hi, Jennifer. Okay, so it sounds like we're just waiting for Commissioner Murphy.
So good evening. We're going to reconvene the Planning Commission meeting of April 13th, 2020. Before we start, I'd like to explain how we're going to be doing our public comments this evening. So for each item requiring public comment, I will call the secretary to read the public comments. Once that happens, no other public comments will be accepted after that time. And as we move on to the additional agenda items, I will again ask the secretary if she has any comments to read. And if there are no public comments received by the secretary at that time, the public comment period will be over. So hopefully that clarifies that process. So moving on, I will go ahead and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance for this evening. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Which is one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So I'm going to move to item 1, which is approval of the minutes from Planning Commission meeting of March 9th. Okay,
Hello?
Sorry, I'm getting a tremendous amount of feedback, and I would assume it's probably because YouTube is running in the background.
right. So if you guys can please mute your phones unless you need to talk, that should help that situation. So,
Hi, this is Sandy.
Sure.
And I can't hear very well either.
all right, we'll do our best to speak louder
So I'll
for
make a
you.
motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, we have
I second that.
so I'm going to have Madam Secretary call the roll for voting then.
Vice Chair Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Commissioner McCann,
Yes.
Commissioner Donor,
Yes.
and Chair Opal.
Yes. So the meeting,
Yes. Yes.
I got that, Roy. Thank you. So the meeting minutes are approved from the March 9th meeting. So moving on to public comments, are there any public comments for this evening that are not agendized items?
Chair Opal, we did receive one public comment that was distributed to the commission prior to the beginning of this meeting. That was the only public comment that we received.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to the consent calendar. We do not have any items on this evening's consent calendar. Items for public hearing, item 2, antenna use permit AUP 19-0001 major and variance V19-0001 to allow the installation of a 50-foot high freestanding commercial wireless telecommunication antenna facility to be housed within a faux bell tower with variances to allow the proposed antenna facility within 500 feet of another freestanding antenna facility and to exceed the 35-foot height limit in the community facility zoning district. The recommendation is to continue this item to a future date. So are there some staff comments regarding that continuance?
Yes, thank you, Chair Opal. Actually, we're requesting to table this item as the technical correct term, in that we will be continuing it or tabling it for a date to be determined, and the item will be renoticed. However, I'd like to point out that the property has been staked, meaning that there are story poles out there showing the overall height of the proposed antenna use permit. And that although we did receive a alternative design, we do anticipate that the alternative design, which is actually a faux tree type design, would be consistent with the story poles that are out there today. So for the public or the commissioners, if you want to take a look at the story poles that are out there now, those are showing what we anticipate being the ultimate height of the proposed antenna. So as I said, we do have a new design that we're looking at, and we'll be renoticing this item. I also like to point out that we did receive 5 public comments by email today, and those have been distributed to the Planning Commission, and those will be included in the public record and sent again to the commissioners when this item is brought back. So with that, no actions needed from the commission. We just need to table this item for a future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. So we'll move on to item 3, the Local Coastal Program Amendment, LCPA 19-0002, Zone Text Amendment, ZA 19-0002, Zoning Code Update. And is there a staff presentation this evening?
Yes, Senior Planner Sean Nicholas will provide a presentation.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Sean Nicholas, Project Planner. So this is LCPA and ZTA 19-0002. We're going to try to go next slide. There we go. It's working. So this project is part of our ongoing goal of maintaining the data point zoning code. As the Planning Commission is aware, we've had actually a number of public workshops to get to this point, to the formal review by the Planning Commission. As the Commission knows that it had started in a different direction with a number of different items and has been refined to the following 3 items before you this evening for expanded joint use of parking facilities, some improvements to our public notification process, and then our updated ADU, JADU requirements. So in terms of the modifications before the Planning Commission this evening, you have first the expansion of the joint use of parking facilities. Currently, the code has a limitation of 300 feet. After the public workshops, that it was determined that a quarter mile would be an appropriate expansion of that joint use of parking facilities, and the zoning ordinance before you this evening reflects that public workshop change, and then also the removal of the word attractive from the requirement regarding connection of parking facilities to a project site, as it is a subjective standard, and Commission felt it would be difficult to quantify. The second item before the Planning Commission this evening has to do with public notification, and we are changing or modifying the zoning code in 2 ways, one of which increases the amount of notification in which ahead of time we'll be notifying projects. Right now, we notify projects and mail out notifications 10 days in advance, and that will be now expanded 14 days in advance. Additionally, we will be, with this amendment, we would require on-site posting of public hearing projects, particularly for commercial issues. This will allow for some kind of visual notification on site. That way, people will know driving by or walking by that there is proposed projects on a site, and it allows, staff has designed this to allow for flexibility in terms of with dependent of different project sites and sizes, that it's been designed to accommodate all of that. In terms of, out of our discussion of our public workshops, a few items to note is that we are putting an increased emphasis on the project planner information. In particular, you might have already noticed that on the agendas associated with each item that the planner's name and contact information is now easily displayed, so that way members of the public looking at it would know who to contact associated with that. And we're encouraging people to get involved before the public hearing, to ask questions and understand the project, so that way when they come to the hearing that they are hopefully prepared and understand what the process is. It's also important to note in terms of electronic, that was another discussion point of how can we better use technology. And the best notification technology we have is about danapoint.com, and that is the city's economic development website. But in particular, I wanted to point out the development pipeline, which is now being updated by the planning staff to discuss projects that are going throughout the community. It's a great website and tool, and it's interactive, so you can actually, with a map, go over a particular project site if a member of the public has questions about, and there's update as well as, again, the project planner's contact information. And there's also on aboutdanapoint.com the ability to sign up for the city's electronic newsletter. So again, both for commissioners so that they're aware, and any members of the public watching this, those are two great technological resources to be aware of current development going on in the city of Dana Point. The last component before the Planning Commission this evening for the ZTA LCPA is for the updated ADU, JADU local requirements. As Planning Commission knows, on January 1st of this year, a new state statute came into effect that removed our current requirements. And so we need to, again, update our local requirements consistent with those state requirements. At the March 9th public workshop, there was a lengthy discussion regarding a variety of items associated with the ADU ordinance before the commission. And in particular, the items associated with heights, building separation, unit size and bedroom limitations, removal of parking requirements, and affordability incentives have all been incorporated into the attached draft resolution for the Planning Commission this evening. I just wanted to highlight a couple items associated with that. The ADU height limit has been set associated for 16 feet, though there has been implemented a number of scenarios in which increased height could potentially occur. And that has to do with if it's being proposed above an existing or proposed detached garage, or if it is attached to a primary structure. Either way, it's important to note that that can only occur as if the primary structure itself is 2 stories. Again, we want to make sure that these ADUs are accessory in nature to the primary unit as they're supposed to be, and also that makes sure that it's architecturally in scale and in character with the primary structure on site. And again, it is to get to that 2-story element or potentially the height limit of the underlying zone. Also, the underlying zoning setbacks are required to be met. And again, those requirements have been incorporated into the ordinance before you this evening. Lastly, I just wanted to hit on, again, the size and bedroom count discussion items and how the how the ordinance before you was updated accordingly. The state statute does require that for a 1-bedroom, you have to allow for a minimum of 850 square feet. Based on the feedback and discussion at the Planning Commission workshop on March 9th, in terms of maintaining our residential neighborhoods, Planning Commission has recommended that we have a limitation of 1 bedroom per ADU across the board. And so the ordinance before you this evening reflects a maximum 850 square feet, 1-bedroom limitation. And this is, again, the proposed ADU requirements are consistent with the discussion that came out of that Planning Commission workshop. Lastly, I apologize. Lastly, now is the affordability incentives. This is something that we kept and wrote broadly to provide for a lot of options in terms of opportunities. We want to obviously promote as much low income and very low income deed restricted units as possible to help us meet those arena numbers. And so we provide a lot of flexibility and opportunity for staff to get creative to promote that. It will require a deed restriction for 55 years, and that's consistent with the state's density bonus law. There is a requirement regarding annual reporting, so that way then we can continue to ensure that these are kept at that affordable level, and also as part of our housing report back every year. And for when we do have to do those our housing element updates in full. And then again, as stated, it's purposefully flexible to provide us opportunities to be creative in those ways. So with that, staff does recommend the Planning Commission adopt the draft resolution recommending approval to the City Council. And this does complete staff's presentation, and staff is available to address any of the Planning Commissioner's questions on the proposed ordinance.
Thank you for that report. At this time, are there any questions from the commissioners?
Yeah, this is Scott Musnian. I have a couple. Nice presentation, Sean. You answered some of my questions already. Can a JADU be a converted garage?
So the way that the state statute writes, in which we follow, is that the JADU has to be within the walls of a single family residential unit. So if there is any attached garage to that, then yes, they could potentially put it in a garage. If it is a detached structure, separate garage, no, it cannot. But if it is an attached garage, the way that the state statute and similarly our local ordinance is written, you could convert a garage into a JADU.
Okay, thank you.
But there is also, so you know, sir, the limitation of the 500 square feet.
Right. Okay. That's my only question. Thank you.
Chair Opal, this is Eric Nelson. I have a few questions for staff.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Nelson.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean. Good presentation. I have a couple quick questions here. Bear with me. First one is on page 9, specifically item 4B, which is the multifamily zoning district. And the question is really relative to how we define a lot or a project. I guess that my concern is that with condominium multifamily projects, you may have multiple lots. And if we're allowing one per lot, you can end up with a project that has potentially a lot of units. So this may just need a little bit of a cleanup from a language perspective, but that would be my question, comment. Am I making sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'll leave that. The next one is page 10, and that is item number 8, which is unit size. So we have a maximum unit square footage, but do we have a minimum?
So the state statute provides that for a 1-bedroom unit, the minimum is 850 square feet. And so in this situation, we're allowing the minimum of 850 square feet. I believe the state statute at bare minimum says for new structure, new ADU, actually 800 square feet would be the bare minimum you'd have to allow. And that would be if it was like a studio, for example. But for a 1-bedroom unit, it's 850 square feet is the minimum.
This is
For an
Jennifer
ADU.
Farrell. If I can just modify what Sean said slightly. We set the maximum size at 850 square feet, so that is the maximum, not the minimum. State law allows for us to set a minimum square footage size. We've not done that in this draft ordinance, but if the Planning Commission desires to, it can set a minimum size for the ADU, so long as it's at least 150 square feet.
Okay, so then thank you, Jennifer, for the clarification. I guess the question is relative to, we have lots of small homes. I think of my home, for example, it's 900 feet, which is going to limit the size of my unit to 425. And I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I guess I want to just make sure that with a 50% maximum size, that we're not boxing in someone's ability to actually build one of these if they wanted to. I guess the question would be, I assume we've looked at that and we don't think that's going to occur.
The way it's written in terms of the 50% requirement, that requirement is directly related to attached ADUs. And that's where that 50% comes from. And I think that the 850 square foot limitation, it has to do with like new construction of attached or detached cannot exceed 850. And that's similar, I think, in a way that you think of it as we used to have the limitation of 1,200 square feet. So if you had, for example, a 3,000 square foot home, you could potentially have 50%, but it would also have the limitation that you can't exceed 1,200 square feet. So instead of the 1,200 square feet in this example, the limitation is at 850 square feet. But the
Okay.
50% only applies for
It doesn't
attached.
preclude you from doing a smaller unit either. We don't have a minimum at this point,
No,
what I'm hearing.
no.
Okay. Okay, I think I have couple other quick questions here. On page 13, item 5, I believe that should be JADUs, if I'm not mistaken, not ADUs. That's related to sharing sanitation facilities.
Yes, sir.
And then the last question is about the floodplain requirement. So, trying to understand, if I have a house that's been built and I want to do a JADU, the house is somehow been reclassified to be in a flood zone. You're not building anything in that flood zone; it's already built. So would this apply for a JADU?
Yes, because it would still be applicable, but I guess it depends on the limitation and what you're building, because it just says the floodplain overlay district shall meet the requirements, that's if it even applies. So if you have an existing condition and you're just converting an interior spaces would be required for a JADU, I suppose that it wouldn't necessarily trigger anything for that. The only thing I could think of would be for the exterior access, but again, that's not necessarily habitable space, so I'm not sure it would trigger anything. So is it applicable, and do I think it's appropriate to have there? Yes, just in case there's a scenario in which we potentially can't think of, that would be important to have that protection in place. Do I feel associated with JADUs is something that's going to come into play substantially? No, I don't. I think it'll probably come into play potentially more with ADUs when we can get more detached structures.
Okay. I think your comment about it being if it's inside, it's not going to trigger any requirement makes sense to me. So that was it. Thank you very much.
Okay, are there any further commissioner questions? Okay,
Chairman McCann, I do have a question. Following on to Commissioner Nelson's, so he raised a question about maybe needing to clean up some language on one of the issues on the multifamily. Do the staff have a proposal to address that now?
Staff, we could go ahead and we can try to draft some language while we're having additional comments. But I believe, just to be clear, to make sure we're all on the same page, Commissioner Nelson, the concern is if you have a condo situation, it might be multiple lots on the same property, and this has to do with lot zone for multi-development is what the code is before you is specifically saying. And you're more concerned that it should be maybe multifamily project almost more so than lot. Is that correct, sir?
That's correct. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the law requires that we allow a certain number per project. And
Yes.
I would want to make sure that it's per project, not per lot. For the fear that, in many of these developments, you may have 15 or 20 lots that ultimately could then, in theory, become ADUs, which is not the intent of this ordinance, from my understanding.
So,
You're right.
so Commissioner McCann, to get back to your
So
point.
this is Jennifer Farrell here. I'm sorry. If the planning commission would like, I can propose some language. And that would be the first sentence. I would say, in multifamily zoning districts, an applicant shall be allowed to construct at least one ADU per project for multifamily project. And then the last line, I would say, should be probably revised to say, Notwithstanding the foregoing, no more than 2 detached ADUs may be constructed in connection with an existing multifamily project, regardless of the lots upon which the project sits. And I'll allow Sean to maybe massage that language a little bit, but I think for our purposes, staff understands the direction, and we're probably prepared to move forward with language along those lines, although we might massage it here or there.
And I was going to say, Commissioner McCann, along those same lines, I think we have the intent. So I would agree with the city attorney in terms of we can definitely draft something consistent with those goals if that's the commission's decision.
Okay, thank you for addressing the question.
All right, moving this forward, Madam Secretary, are there any public comments on this item?
No, Chair Opal.
Was someone trying to speak?
I was trying to speak. This is Roy Donner.
Yes, Roy. Did you have staff questions or? Roy, did you have a staff question?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Do you have a question?
Can you? Yes, I have a question for Sean.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead with your question.
Sean, does the notification with someone, if someone signs up for notification from the city, is that the same last email that you're getting the data point COVID-19?
So Commissioner Donor, I think your question had to do with public notification, and if someone has an interest on a project, is their only option going to aboutdanapoint.com? So I will answer that question first if I'm correct. I would say that anyone who has any questions on any project or potential development in the community can always feel free to contact the planning division, and you will be connected with the particular planner associated with that project. Also, with every public hearing notice, we'll make sure we're trying to continuing to highlight who the project planner is and their contact information to make it easier for people to find on our notice, as well as we said, on the agenda items, once they get posted, the contact information directly for the planner is listed on there. So there's a variety of ways in which people can definitely call into the planning division and get in contact with us about any project, especially those going to public hearing. But in terms of, in general, if someone has questions regarding development in the community, again, the About Dana Point website provides the opportunity to point and click on a particular parcel on the development pipeline, but also get general updates of projects and general city information via the city's electronic newsletter. Does that address your question, Commissioner Donor?
I believe there's a bit of a delay with the Cox news feed. So if he's listening, Roy, if you're listening on Cox, there might be a bit of a time delay, which could be creating communication issues.
Yes.
If you're listening, there might be a bit of a time delay, which could be creating
So Roy, if you just want to listen via your phone, that might solve the error. Or turn the volume down on your Cox TV feed. That might help solve this problem.
Turn the volume down on your Cox
this problem.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
We just have a significant delay.
Well, we can hear you now. I do apologize for the delay. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, I think we're back on track.
Okay, Roy, did Sean answer your question correctly?
Yes.
All right, then. There were no public comments, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Since we are having a few difficulties and because there are 3 items, I'd like to pull the commissioners to see if there's any discussion or related to the expansion of joint use parking. I assume no. And then if there's any discussion related to public notifications. All right, so then is there any discussion?
Chair Opal, this is Scott McCann.
Yes, go ahead, Scott.
I'm supportive of the proposed language as written on all items, so long as we incorporate the language that the city attorney suggested relative to multifamily. And I'd be happy to make a motion on the item at the appropriate time.
All right, are there any discussion or commission discussions regarding the ADU, JDU text changes? So hearing none, I guess I would,
Chair,
oh, go ahead, Commissioner
Chair,
Nelson.
this is Vice Chair Nelson.
Go ahead, Commissioner Nelson.
So I concur with Commissioner McCann's comments. I believe that everything, all the items that are part of this action are consistent with our city general plan. They're consistent with the Coastal Act and consistent with our local coastal program procedures. And I am in support of them as well. I have no further comments.
All right, Commissioner Donor or Murphy, do you have any comments on this?
No different comments, no.
Commissioner Donor, any comments? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion then, Commissioner McCann.
Mary, I have just, hello?
Yes, Roy.
Go ahead, Roy.
I said I fully support the program. Go ahead, Roy. I said I fully support the program.
Can't hear you, Roy.
I can't hear me either.
This is Commissioner McCann. I'll go ahead and make a motion.
Oh, good.
I move that we recommend approval to City Council of a resolution of the, and we have a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Dana Point recommending City Council approval of Local Coastal Program Amendment LCPA 19-0002 and Zone Text Amendment ZTA 19-002 to modify the zoning code related to the accessory dwelling units, joint parking provisions, and public notification. And I move that we incorporate the language draft proposed by City Attorney.
I second that.
All right, Madam Secretary, could you please pull the commissioners on their votes?
Vice Chair Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Commissioner McCann,
Yes.
Commissioner Donor,
Yes.
and Chair Opal.
Yes. So that passes unanimously. So moving on to old business, we have no old business. For new business, we have no new business. And do we have any staff reports this evening?
Just wanted to thank the commissioners for bearing with us tonight. It was, we wanted to ensure that we can continue operations, and this is our first meeting of this method. So hopefully we won't have to too many more of these, but I think we have a few things to iron out. But thank you for your patience and for helping us out tonight and getting some work accomplished. Hope you all are healthy and safe.
And do we have any
Yeah.
commissioner comments for this evening?
Thank you to staff for putting yourselves at risk to be out there in public and doing your part to keep things moving forward. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Mary, for getting dressed and going to the meeting.
You're welcome.
I agree with those things. Do we have a planning commission meeting agenda for the 27th?
We currently have no items scheduled for that meeting.
All right, hearing no more comments, I will adjourn this meeting to the next meeting for April 27th.